Hey guys, it is Eric from GameShampoo.com, and I am back with more Magic cards. I already took a look at the Orzhov deck from Dragon's Maze, and so that just leaves me with Azorius and Rakdos. Since I only got 3, there's 5 in total, but just got what the store had at the time. And kitchen table's kind of been taken over, so I moved upstairs, and I'm just gonna toss out all these cards, do one video for each deck, and show you what's inside of each deck, and then review it, having played a couple of games with each. I want to say I did 3 with Orzhov, and then with Azorius I did 2, and Rakdos I did 2 or 3 games as well, and kind of pitted all the decks against each other. So had the opponent play with these decks as well, and kind of got their opinions on it, which generally seem to be pretty much in line with mine. So let's go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Which one do I want to do? Let's start with Azorius, and then I'll do Rakdos later. So got the box, obviously. At this point, it's pretty clear what's going to be in a box of Magic cards. When you get a starter deck like this, you get a little rule book, which just kind of elaborates upon the rules, because these things are kind of designed for new players, so not super necessary for like somebody who's played a lot of Magic. And then you get the little pamphlet in here. Let's just dump it out. Which kind of tells you what's going on in the set. Gives you an idea of all the decks and all the stuff that comes in them. And then, not pictured here in this bundle of junk, is the 2 booster packs that you'll get, which contain 15 cards each. Entirely randomized, nothing like themed around the deck you got or anything like that. It's all random. I'm trying to open this thing up, but it's super difficult with one hand. And there we go. So just to give you kind of an idea, if you've never bought a deck of Magic cards before, what you can look for inside of one of them. Probably the best place to start if you're going to be getting into this stuff. And these are the decks of this set: Simic Domination, Gruul Siege, Rakdos Revelry, Orzhov Power, and Azorius Authority. Like I said, I've got the Authority, Power, and Revelry decks right now. And hopefully we can look forward to a little bit of Gruul and Simic later. Go back to the store and see what they've got. So this is a deck that we're going to be taking a look at today. And let's read off the description, I suppose, and then dig into it. So I'm probably going to mispronounce a word or two here, but let's give it a shot. Alright, Lavinia of the 10th has rallied a patrol of Azorius officers and law mages, and nothing will stop them from catching lawbreakers. Rather than destroy creatures outright, the Azorius Senate prefers to lock them up in jail by using the detain mechanic, which is super annoying and probably doesn't make for a very good jailing system since it only lasts for a turn. Alright, start the game by getting creatures like Silvercoat Lion and Stealer of Secrets onto the battlefield. When you're ready to attack, make sure that your creatures can punch through for damage. Detain isn't your only weapon for locking down potential blockers. Cards like Hazda, Snare Squad, and Arrest can clear a path for your ground attack turn after turn. Even if your opponent manages to mount a defense, your flying creatures should be able to finish the job. The Azorius Authority deck also boasts some powerful combat-oriented spells. Protect and Serve is your most flexible spell. You can cast Protect for 3 to give your own creature +2/+4 for a turn, or you can cast Serve for 2 to give an opposing creature -6/-0 for a turn. But if you have enough mana, why not use the new Fuse ability and cast both halves together to get both effects. If you're looking to modify this deck, there are plenty of powerful Azorius cards waiting for you in the Return to Ravnica set. The legendary leader Isperia, yeah, okay. Supreme Judge is a titanic flying creature that draws you cards every time your opponent is foolish enough to attack you. The Innistrad block also holds some strong cards in your colors, including Geist of St. Thraft, a 2/2 for 3 that creates a 4/4 angel each time it attacks. Okay, cool. So, that's the deck description. Oh, the deck fell over. Well, I'll help you out, buddy. There you go. Let's get into it. So, this is what the deck looks like when it's all laid out. Everything is said and done. We've got separate piles for each type of card, just like we did with Orzhov. We've got the creatures over there, instants, enchantments, sorceries, artifacts, and then we move up to the mana. So we've got islands, plains, and then the guild gates, which is kind of similar split to the last deck I did, the Orzhov. 4 guild gates, and then I believe it's 12 plains, and then 10 islands, for a total of 22 regular mana, and then 4 guild gates. So a little bit less in terms of the mana than the Orzhov deck had, and also just slightly less in the way of creatures. The starter decks tend to be pretty heavy on creatures, generally having like 20 to 25, somewhere in that range. For a 60 card deck, that's about a little over a third of the deck, and in this case there are 22, I believe, creatures total on the deck, which I think Orzhov had 24, so it's just a little bit less, and there's a much more even split between instants, enchantments, sorceries, and then artifacts. The Orzhov deck had 1 sorcery in it, and this one already doing better in that respect. It's got like 4 or 5. So let's start off with the artifacts. That's the easy way to start, because there's only 1, and there's 2 of that one. The Azorius Cluestone, which is, this kind of variant on an artifact that is in every one of the starter decks for this set. So you can tap it and add either color of mana for the deck into your mana pool. So that's going to be plains or island. Or you can tap 1 plain and 1 island and tap the artifact, sacrifice it, and then draw a card. So keep adding mana to your mana pool until you kind of don't need to do that anymore, and then you can toss it away and draw a card. I didn't find myself having to do that as much in this deck as I did with the Orzhov deck, where certain cards in there, let's see if I can remember the name specifically. I want to say it was Dusk Revenant, maybe? The flying creature that goes back on top of your deck. That card just kept screwing me over, and so I had to keep drawing more and more cards. So that was really useful there. I didn't find like I needed that much here, though. Now on to sorceries. Let's start out with Righteous Charge. Creatures you control get 2/2 until the end of turn, and it's a 3-drop. And there are 2 of them. So that's that. Next up is Leave Decree, I want to say. It's a 2-drop sorcery. Detain up to 2 target creatures your opponents control. And detain is kind of the big deal with this guild. Detain, in case you don't know, is until your next turn. Those creatures cannot attack or block, and their activated abilities cannot be activated. That is super annoying. And there are 2 of those too. And that's it for sorceries. Still just 4. There we go. But still way more flexible than the Orzhov deck was in that respect. So then we come up to the first rare card in the deck when we go over to enchantments. This is Martial Law. It's a 4-drop enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, detain target creature and opponent controls. Incredibly annoying and incredibly powerful card. Just like pretty much all the decks, this rare is not from the current set. The other rare is, but if you haven't gotten this already, it's a really good card. really helpful, and it's going to cripple pretty much your opponent's strongest creature, unless you have some reason to use it on another creature every turn until they can get rid of this thing. It's really, really helpful. So that's a solid. Next up is Arrest. It's a 3-drop enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So it's kind of like Pacifism, or several similar cards that have been kind of cycling around. It's always really annoying to have something like this thrown onto one of your creatures. So it's always a solid bet to be the one casting that spell at somebody instead of having it targeted at you. Restore the Peace is the first instant. It is a 3-drop, dual-colored instant. Return each creature that dealt damage this turn to its owner's hand. So it's kind of like a tricky deck that's kind of focusing on getting rid of the creatures that the opponent has on the battlefield, more so than dealing crazy amounts of damage or anything like that. And so this really plays into that kind of motif really well. Next up is Protect and Serve, an instant card that we mentioned earlier, where the target creature gets 2/4 until the end of turn, or target creature gets -6/-0 till the end of turn, and then you can pay the fuse cost, which is gonna be 5 to cast both of them at once. Next up is Avenging Arrow. There are 2 of these. It's a 3-drop, destroy target creature that dealt damage this turn. Again, kind of a tricky thing, like, you're going to take damage this turn regardless of what happens when you cast this spell. But it's a good way to be like, well, at least you can't do that again. Got your creature. So 2 of those, and now get that off of there and move him back up there. Go over to creatures, which is the biggest pile in the deck, and get over to the second rare card in the deck, a 5-drop called Lavinia of the 10th. She is a legendary creature, so there can only be 1 of her out on the battlefield at a time. A human soldier with protection from red. When she enters the battlefield, detain each non-land permanent your opponent's control. Excuse me, that's important because it's everybody if you're playing with more than 2 people. With converted mana cost 4 or less. And she's a 4/4. So when she comes out here, every single thing that's on the battlefield that has a converted mana cost of 4 or under. So if you're new to the game, then that would be the little number up in the corner. If that adds up to 4 or less, it's out of here for this turn, which is, unsurprisingly, by far the most useful thing in the deck. And if you've built up a good army of creatures out here, which is totally feasible given that they're mostly pretty cheap creatures, mostly pretty small, you can really, really wreak havoc, wreak havoc with this card when it finally does come out. I found that when I won with this deck, I think I won 1 game and lost 1 game with this deck, and then I think I played against the deck and lost 1 with playing as Orzhov. So I found that it was kind of an even game when I won, and then I brought out Lavinia, and just instantly we were both around like 13, 15, something like that, and then got my opponent down to 1, and then I was just able to kind of fly over the next turn and hit for the remaining 1. So do not underestimate how useful this card is. It's really, really awesome. Next up, Azorius Justicar is a 4-drop human wizard. When Azorius Justicar enters the battlefield, detain up to 2 target creatures your opponents control, and it's a 2/2. That's him over there. Next up is the Leave Sky Knight. It is a 3-drop human knight creature that likes to rotate around. When Leave Sky Knight enters the battlefield, detain target non-land permanent and opponent controls. It's a 3/1. Next up is the Soulsworn Spirit. It is a 4-drop spirit creature. It is unblockable, and when it enters the battlefield, detain target creature and opponent controls. It's a 2/1. So this is a very useful card. Just, the combination of unblockable and detain, pretty nifty. Wind Drake is up next. There are 3 of these guys in here. It's a 3-drop flying Drake creature, 2/2. These guys have been around for quite some time in one form or another, so it's not exactly breaking new ground, not exactly going to blow anybody's mind with those effects, but it's also pretty useful in the context of this deck to just have a fairly cheap 2/2 flying, not bad. Stealer of Secrets is under that dude. She is a 3-drop human rogue, which is important if you are playing against certain other rogues that have effects that affect other rogues, like certain creatures can only be blocked by rogues, for example, stuff like that. Whenever Stealer of Secrets deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. I do like abilities like that, generally speaking, but given that she doesn't have any kind of like unblockable or flying or like trample or anything like that, there are other cards that have effects like that combined with the draw card when you deal damage effect. And there are combinations of enchantments and artifacts that you can do that are going to end up doing that same effect but better. But if you're just starting out, this is a good kind of starting point. And there are 2 of them, I believe. Yep. The Gellan Sphinx is up next. It's a 5-drop with flying and vigilance. And my tongue is not good right now. Whenever Gellan Sphinx attacks, other attacking creatures get 1/1 until the end of turn. It's a 1/5. I found this card to be very, very useful as well. And since there are 2 of them, the effect will stack if you have them both out, which I did manage to do. And that's how I ended up dealing such a big blow with 2 Gellan Sphinxes and a couple of those Wind Drakes. So don't underestimate, again, how much that can stack up. You can get powerful pretty fast with stuff like that. And if you're looking to expand upon this deck, it might be smart to put 2 more of them in here. You can probably find something a little bit better, but with flying and vigilance and that effect, if you got 4 of them out there, it's really, really formidable. Azorius Authority is up next. He's a 2-drop human soldier. When he enters the battlefield, detain target creature and opponent controls, and he's a 2/1. And there are, 2 of them? Yeah, 2 of them. Sunspire Gatekeepers is after him. It's a 4-drop human soldier. When Sunspire Gatekeepers enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, put a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield. 2/4. Not necessarily the most amazing effect when you consider what the rest of the deck is going for. There's 2 of them. I mean, it's always useful to have tokens. It's always useful to have creatures with vigilance. So that's hardly like a bad card, but it's one that you could probably replace pretty easily if you were looking to expand upon this deck in some meaningful way. Over here we've got Ascended Law Mage. It's a 4-drop with flying and hexproof, and it's got 3/2. Another card that I found to be really useful because of the hexproof specifically. And if you combine it with Gellan Sphinx, you've got a pretty powerful flyer on your hands. There are 2 of them, which is very useful. And up next we've got Hazda Snare Squad. There are 2 of them. It is a 3-drop human soldier. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 white mana. If you do, tap target creature and opponent controls, and it's 1/4. For a common card, and for a common card that comes in a starter deck, I found that to be pretty impressively useful, just because you can take specific creatures out of the game for a turn, and that way that actually works really well with the flying in this deck, because if your opponent has a creature with flying or has a creature with reach, you can tap an extra mana and go, well, you don't have it for this turn, and fly right past. Finally, there are 3 Silver Coat Lions. It's a 2-drop, nothing special, it's just a 2/2. If you're looking to replace cards in this deck and build something out around this deck, I would say start with these 3 guys because, nothing special that really has anything to do with detain or any kind of weird stuff like that. So, I would say toss those 3 out first if you're gonna build something up around this deck. So, okay, so we've got this hideous pile going on over here. But that's the whole deck, and time for a few impressions, I guess. I did play a few games, as I mentioned before. Excuse me. I had to refill on water because it's getting, ridiculously hot in here, and places in California don't see fit to put air conditioning in their houses, at least in the Bay Area. But anyway, stuff to keep. Definitely keep the Gellan Sphinxes, and I would say even get 2 more. Obviously keep Lavinia of the 10th, ridiculously useful card. Keep Martial Law for sure. Keep the Ascended Law Mages, very useful. Hexproof makes them quite an asset. Your opponent, seeing all this flying stuff coming, is going to want to get rid of it, and it's good to just have that kind of insurance of hexproof on there, just in case. I would say keep the Hazda Snare Squad, at least 1. They are pretty useful. I'd say keep Restore the Peace. That's a good way of setting your opponent back, especially if they do a full swing or, like a big attack, and you're just kind of clinging on. At least you can buy yourself some time. And let's see if there's anything else super good in here. I do not remember. You can probably replace the Stealer of Secrets pretty easily. Soulsworn Spirit is a good one to keep in here because it's unblockable and because you get to detain. And then, various sorceries, instants that let you detain creatures. That's always a good bet. And hell, even Protect and Serve is pretty nifty too, although it doesn't necessarily have a ton to do with detain. It can, power your guys up or power your opponents down when you're going for the big swing. So that's pretty useful too. And overall, I found this deck to be much, much better than Orzhov's. It's just much better balanced. The detain is a bigger focus here than the Extort was for Orzhov, which only a couple cards in that deck had that. And when you're going in for the full swing, I think it's really easy with this deck to power up a lot of weaker creatures and kind of just hit for unexpectedly high damage. So probably my favorite of the 3 decks that I've played so far, and I like it a lot. Of course, if you're really into this kind of stuff, you can just get the necessary cards on a card site, eBay, Amazon, whatever you want to go to, and probably save a little bit of money. You might have a lot of these cards already or similar cards already, and that would save you a little bit of money. But if you're just starting out, this is a really good starting point. So yeah, thanks for watching.